Hey guys, today I'm here to do a Tiffany's Tell All, and it's not going to be just one question, but I'm going to try and do all of the questions that were asked on the last 3 videos from our recent hospital stay. So as you can see, we are home and Michaela's doing much better. I've caught up on sleep. Well, maybe caught up on sleep. That was actually one of the questions that I got was, are you okay? And I'm doing okay. I was very exhausted, very sick, and was ready to go home when I was posting those videos, or when I was filming those videos. And yeah, I was definitely tired from mental exhaustion and physical exhaustion. So thank you, I am doing okay, and Baby Girls is doing good. So I do have questions saved on my phone, and there was very similar questions asked, so I'll answer those questions, the ones that were frequently asked in regards to this stay. So the main thing was on the first video about why there's no beds in the ICU rooms. So this question was asked from Janine Addy. What about getting an air mattress? When you do have to be in hospital, you can be more comfy, packs up easy, like, you know, the ones used for camping. And this is actually something that we've done in the past in regular sick kids rooms, the ones that I showed you with the beds and the bathrooms. We have actually used an air mattress or like laid down the cushions in that on the floor. But in ICU rooms, you're not allowed to have anything, and it's because of medical reasons. So because you're in ICU, usually anyone that is in ICU is on the verge of maybe passing away or maybe needing CPR and things like that. They do not want anything that they could trip over that would be in the way of multiple people being in the room working on a patient. So that is actually why you're not allowed to have anything. But I also did speak with, I believe it was one of the nurses or the physiotherapist there, that it should actually be the opposite. So the 7th floor where we go up to as she's getting better, that has the beds, they say that they rely on the parents more because there's multiple children per nurse, whereas in ICU it's 1 nurse per child. So they rely on the parents more, so they need to have more amenities close by. However, I feel the opposite, that parents that have children in the ICU are actually more mentally exhausted, more physically exhausted, need that mental and physical stability while their child is in ICU, because it is a most critical point in their care. But they are building that new sick kids across the road. Hopefully that is something that they can work on for ICU parents sometime when they build that. But they also do have a room with a bunch of recliners set up in little cubbies that you can go and sleep. And then they used to have 4 rooms that you could apply for each morning, and say 4 families or 4 parents could get those rooms. Now they took those away and replaced it with the recliners, but they also have the Ronald McDonald room in the hospital, so there is 1 single room now, and they also have recliner chairs. I did stay in those last time around. This time around I was lucky enough to get 2 chairs, so I was comfortable enough staying in the room because I could get enough sleep to function. So that's why I chose 2. I could have always went to a recliner to take a nap or whatever, but I prefer to be in the room as much as possible if I can. The next question comes from Cindy Horse. Why did you have to change her formula? If it was working for years, I'd be leery that the new formula was causing her seizures or not agreeing with her. So the reason why we changed her formula was back in October, November, when we stayed in sick kids last. She had an aspiration pneumonia, which is her first in many years, and we felt that it would be best to try and switch her to a different formula that was more of a broken down formula. So Neurgen Junior with fiber is basically like a formula that anyone can take, that you would see like elderly people taking, and they just need like calories, whereas her new formula, Peptamen 1.5, is a broken down formula. And the reason why we had originally switched was because we felt like Michaela was getting sick so often that she wasn't able to build up the calorie intake that she needed because she was always sick this last year. So we did try and go to what was called an isosource formula, which was a 1.5 kcal per mil. So instead of 1 calorie per mil, it was 1.5 calories per mil. So we tried to build her up to that, but it was just so heavy on her stomach that we felt that she basically couldn't keep it down, or keep it down without aspirating. So that is when we were actually in hospital, and we decided, why don't we try this broken down formula? It's still 1.5 calorie per mil, but it's more broken down so that it passes through your system easier. So that's actually why we switched to that formula in the first place. It causing her seizures, I don't believe is the case, because she only has seizures when she's getting better in hospital, and that's after being a week in hospital, irritable, being poked and prodded all the time, and all of that. So her seizures have always increased when she's sick, just not quite this much. So I don't believe it's her formula causing her seizures. And also she's been tolerating the formula really well since we started it. So I don't have a problem with switching her formula. It was just something that we were doing and transitioning. And the domperidone we were actually using previously before we started switching to the Peptamen, when she was on the isosource, to help balance it, because the isosource wasn't broken down. So we were hoping the domperidone would help break it down quicker and she wouldn't aspirate as much, which it did. It just, when she was switched to the Peptamen, we no longer needed the domperidone because we felt like she was throwing up often, and we took her off of that and didn't realize that it was contributing so much to her stools, and that's when she got constipated. So that also answers Co-Chief Emerald's why are you using different feeding tube formula now? Is it because she's too old for the original one that she was on? And no, that's not the case. She could have stayed on Nurture Junior if we had felt that was best for her. So the next question I wanted to answer was actually a very good question, and something that we actually discussed with the doctors this time around, and it's from Christine M. Why don't they give you BiPAP for home? It would be useful for bedtimes and helping prevent illness. I'm happy to hear she's doing better, and thank you. Now, there was a reply on that, and it says it won't prevent illness, and Christine did go on to say it does prevent illness, not as in catching something, but it will help her keep her lungs open, help her with her gas exchanges in the lungs. She has a son with a trach and uses BiPAP at night, and also that she's a nurse. Now, this is true in some cases. However, in some cases, BiPAP is not the route to go. And for us, I did have a conversation with the doctor that was on one night. It was like 5 in the morning, and she had basically told us that BiPAP may help with her CO2 gases, because every time she comes into a hospital, her CO2 gases raise up really, really high. If some of you don't know, CO2 gases is what you exhale when you breathe. So you intake oxygen and you exhale CO2. And if you're not exhaling enough CO2, your body gases are higher, which can be not good for your health and wellness and getting better quicker. So that is the case for Michaela, and I said, sure, I would like to talk to the respiratory specialist that can explain more about this and what it would involve and what we think would help Michaela, what are the pros and cons to it. And basically they came in and I explained our situation, stating that we may consider BiPAP at home because she's always sick. However, usually when Michaela goes into hospital, it is because of a viral infection or a bacterial infection, and she requires other things like IV, obviously x-rays and certain things like that. So when we go into hospital, she's of course going to require that BiPAP, but she requires other things as well. And keeping her CO2 gases down is definitely something that we would like to achieve. However, the con side of that is that the BiPAP can actually cause more harm to Michaela than good as well, because Michaela is the type of person that keeps everything pooled in her throat, and if she's keeping that there and the BiPAP is forcing air into her lungs or forcing pressure into her lungs, it can actually force whatever's in her mouth into her lungs and cause aspiration more. That is actually the biggest reason why we decided not to go that route. And also, again, we don't want to keep Michaela here longer than what she's supposed to be. And we feel like having BiPAP at home, yes, would help us keep her sicknesses under control a little bit better. But if she's requiring BiPAP, like I said, she usually requires other things like IV, antibiotics, that type of thing. So we are not for BiPAP as of this time. Originally, if you have been here for a while, you know that we were even struggling having oxygen at home. And the reason why they wanted the BiPAP at home was more for the CO2 gases rather than the sickness part of it. So to me, I feel like having her CO2 gases wouldn't help her. And I mean, obviously it would help her, but it would only bring down her drowsiness, make her a little bit more alert. And I feel like for the exchange of maybe aspirating more, that to us is not worth it. So we would rather hold off on the BiPAP and allow her to be a little bit more drowsy, have her naps throughout the day, than actually risk aspiration. So it's a great question. However, BiPAP is not the right thing for everybody. So I think that is all of the questions that I wanted to answer for these videos. I hope it answered your questions and you got a little bit more information. Just know that any decision that we make with Michaela is always a very open conversation with our doctors and people involved, and it always is not taken lightly or made briefly. It is always something that we discuss and find out all our options, all of the pros and cons, and weigh those to see what's best for Michaela. And as of this time, we are trying to find our new normal with her feeds, with her medications and sicknesses. Hopefully soon we will get everything under control. It's just kind of a rough patch in her life right now with going through puberty and switching all of these things at once. So anyways, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and we will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye guys.